Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. We're going to take a comprehensive look at children's mental health, exploring how we can better understand, diagnose, and treat mental health challenges as children grow into adolescence. This is an important topic that affects many families and communities, and I'm excited to share insights and strategies that can make a real difference. Let's dive in. Children's mental health is finally receiving the attention it deserves after many years of being overlooked and misunderstood. It's important to recognize that mental health issues in children can look very different from those in adults, in how they show up, what causes them, and how they should be treated. This field isn't just relevant to psychologists or doctors anymore. It now plays a crucial role across many professions like teaching, counseling, law, and rehabilitation. Because of this growing awareness, there's an increasing demand for specialists who are trained specifically to support children and adolescents. Ultimately, society's rising concern about children's well-being reinforces why it's so critical to address mental health early in life. Georgina is a 10-year-old girl who began showing signs of obsessive-compulsive disorder through behaviors like arranging objects in a certain way and counting in groups of four. Over time, her compulsions grew more intense, causing significant distress and affecting important areas of her life, such as her sleep, school performance, and relationships with friends. The driving force behind her rituals was a deep fear that harm would come to herself or her family if she didn't complete her counting properly. This fear led her to spend hours each night on these rituals. As a result, we see a clear decline in her functioning, including her academic performance, demonstrating just how impactful childhood OCD can be. This case really underscores the critical importance of early diagnosis and timely intervention to prevent these severe effects. When we talk about distinguishing normal from abnormal behavior in children, it's crucial to keep a few important factors in mind. First, the child's developmental stage plays a huge role. What might be typical behavior for a toddler could be a red flag for an older child. Then, there's cultural background, which shapes how behaviors are expressed and interpreted. Something seen as unusual in one culture might be perfectly normal in another. Lastly, the context matters a lot. Behaviors can vary depending on the situation or environment the child is in. So, when defining psychological disorders in children, we need to look at these elements together to make an accurate and fair assessment. In past centuries, children with mental health challenges often faced very harsh treatment. They were frequently neglected and viewed more as burdens or property than as individuals in need of care. However, this perspective began to change in the 1600s, largely thanks to thinkers like John Locke. Locke emphasized the importance of treating children with kindness and recognizing their sensitivity, advocating for education and humane care. Later, in the 19th century, Jean-Marc Itard made significant strides through his work with Victor of Averin, a child with severe developmental delays. Itard's breakthrough showed that with proper training and attention, even those with profound difficulties could make meaningful progress, laying important groundwork for modern approaches to child mental health care. Psychoanalytic theory, developed by Freud, was groundbreaking in connecting mental disorders to early childhood experiences. It highlighted that multiple factors interact over time during development to influence mental health. Building on this foundation, Anna Freud and Melanie Klein extended these ideas specifically to children, deepening our understanding of childhood psychology. Around the same time, behaviorism emerged under John B. Watson's leadership, focusing on the scientific study of conditioning to explain and change behavior. One of the most well-known examples from this era is the Little Albert experiment, which showed how fear could be conditioned in a child. While this experiment raised ethical questions by today's standards, it significantly shaped experimental approaches in child psychology. Looking at the evolution of treatment methods, we can see several important shifts over time. Initially, children with mental disorders were often institutionalized. This was the primary approach, but it had significant limitations. In the 1950s, behavior therapy emerged, focusing on conditioning principles to modify behaviors. This was a major development because it offered a more practical, evidence-based way to help children. At the same time, psychoanalysis, which had been more prominent before, started to decline in child settings. Behavioral therapies began expanding beyond clinical settings into schools and families, making them more accessible. Eventually, research highlighted the negative effects of institutionalization, leading to a shift toward foster care and community-based interventions. These approaches aim to provide healthier and more supportive environments for children's development, moving away from isolated institutional settings. Now, let's look at how legislation has driven social change for children with disabilities. A key piece of U.S. law is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. This law guarantees that children with special needs receive a free and appropriate public education. Importantly, it requires that this education happen in the least restrictive environment possible, meaning children should learn alongside their peers whenever feasible. IDEA also emphasizes individualized educational programs tailored to each child's unique needs and calls for assessments that respect cultural differences. On a global scale, the 2007 UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has been transformative. This convention shifted the perspective from seeing children with disabilities as charity cases to fully recognizing them as individuals with human rights. It obliges member countries to protect these rights by promoting inclusion, equality, and access to opportunities for children with disabilities worldwide. Both these laws highlight the ongoing commitment to ensuring dignity, respect, and equal access to education and social participation. When we talk about psychological disorders, we're looking at patterns in behavior, emotions, or thinking that cause significant distress, impair daily functioning, or increase the risk of harm. It's important to understand these disorders don't just appear in isolation. They have unique characteristics that affect individuals differently. Now, competence refers to how well a child adapts to their environment by using both internal strengths and external support systems. This concept is not one size fits all. It changes depending on cultural and environmental contexts, highlighting that what counts as competence in one setting might look different in another. Next, we have the idea of multifinality. This means that children who start with similar early experiences can follow different developmental paths, leading to a variety of outcomes. It reminds us that those early experiences don't determine a single future. On the flip side, equifinality shows that children with very different beginnings can end up with similar psychological disorders. This concept emphasizes the complexity of mental health in children and the many routes that can lead to similar challenges. Both multifinality and equifinality help us appreciate the diverse and intricate nature of child development and psychopathology. When we talk about risk and resilience in child development, it's important to understand what increases a child's vulnerability to psychological challenges. Factors such as poverty, maltreatment, and parental mental illness play a significant role in making children more susceptible to these issues. These risk factors don't just affect immediate well-being. They can have lasting impacts on a child's emotional and psychological health. Recognizing these risks helps us identify which children may need additional support to build resilience and thrive despite their circumstances. Mental health disorders affect about 1 in 8 children, making it a significant concern. These issues often begin early in life and can be strong indicators of problems that persist into adulthood. Despite how common these disorders are, fewer than 10% of children actually receive the appropriate services they need. This gap is largely due to limited awareness among families and challenges in accessing care. The range of disorders in children and youths is broad, encompassing learning difficulties, emotional challenges, behavioral conduct problems, and trauma-related issues. Recognizing these problems early is crucial because timely intervention can greatly reduce their long-term impact, not just on the individual, but also on their families and society as a whole. Ultimately, addressing mental health problems in childhood is key to preventing ongoing difficulties later in life, underlining the importance of early and effective care. When we look at the impact of poverty on children's mental health, it's clear that living in poverty exposes children to numerous stressors that can significantly affect their well-being. For example, children in these situations often experience harsh parenting, which might result from the pressures and frustrations faced by caregivers. Additionally, many children in poverty are exposed to violence, either in their communities or even at home. These factors create a challenging environment that increases the risk of mental health problems. Understanding these influences helps us recognize the need for targeted support and resources to help these children thrive despite their difficult circumstances. When children experience abuse, neglect, or are exposed to violence, it can have serious effects on their mental health, leading to conditions like PTSD, depression, and even substance abuse. As these children grow into adolescence, they face additional challenges. This period naturally involves risk-taking behaviors, but these risks can be even more pronounced for sexual minority youths, who often encounter unique difficulties. Sexual minority adolescents tend to experience higher rates of victimization and face mental health struggles largely due to stigma and discrimination. That's why prevention is so important. It helps protect these vulnerable groups and supports their healthy development. Tailored support that addresses the specific needs of these youths, especially sexual minority adolescents, plays a critical role in helping them navigate these challenges and thrive. When childhood mental health problems go untreated, they often continue into adulthood, leading to challenges in education, work, and personal relationships. This persistence not only affects the individual, but also contributes to broader social and economic costs. In fact, about 20% of those with chronic disorders face difficulties that last a lifetime. That's why early intervention is so crucial. It can prevent or lessen these long-term impacts, helping children develop healthier paths as they grow. Beyond benefiting individuals, early intervention also reduces overall human suffering and eases the strain on community resources, making it a vital investment for society as a whole. As we look ahead, it's clear that effective child mental health care depends on integrative approaches that are informed by a child's developmental stage. This means recognizing not just their challenges, but also their strengths, which plays a crucial role in shaping treatment. It's also important to keep a holistic perspective in mind. Many disorders overlap and can present differently depending on the child, so understanding the whole picture is essential for accurate diagnosis and care. The next chapters will dive deeper into this by exploring key theories, research methods, and clinical issues. We'll take a detailed look at various disorders, including neurodevelopmental, behavioral emotional, and medical-related conditions. Throughout, there's a strong emphasis on using evidence-based assessments and treatments to ensure the best outcomes. Finally, all treatment approaches are carefully tailored to each child's unique needs, which is vital to making interventions as effective as possible.